This right here is Car Con Carne, a Q101 podcast. And Car Con Carne is presented by Alex Ross Art. For those who have never picked up a comic book or graphic novel, prepare to have your mind blown. Alex Ross has transformed the entire industry. He has transformed the business of creating comics and graphic novels. His website is alexrossart.com. You can go there, see what I'm talking about, but you can also buy original artwork from Alex's website. Or if you want to hear the words of Alex Ross spoken by him, visit his YouTube page. He keeps that updated regularly, and that's at the Alex Ross on YouTube. Now, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, here's a little bit more about Alex Ross.
It's Car Con Carne. Let's eat in the car. It's Car Con Carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Elston.
So as I'm recording this, it's almost time. May 19th is the Fight for Air Climb happening at Soldier Field. I'm doing this with the American Lung Association. We're going to take on the stairs of Soldier Field, just like we took on the stairs of the Oak Brook Terrace Tower in Oak Brook back in March. And the whole purpose is to raise awareness and raise money to fight lung disease. I would love for you to participate. More specifically, I would love for you to be part of my team. How do you join my team? Fair question. Go to fightforairclimb.org/Chicago. Once you're there, fightforairclimb.org/Chicago, go to register as a team and then search Car Con Carne. Now you can do that to be part of my team, or you can start your own team. Don't need to hang out with me. Bring your people. Start your own team. Go solo. We just want you to participate. The weather has turned. It's going to be gorgeous out. We have the stadium to ourselves. There will be no football. There will be no soccer. There will be no loud music. Just us and the stairs. Fightforairclimb.org/Chicago. So you and I both love music. It's the soundtrack to what we do. It's the soundtrack to where we live. Imagine music playing in any room you want, or every room. Having your favorite streaming sources available anywhere in your home. Easy automation makes it all easy. Integrating into your smart home system. How easy? Well, my guy Dan will tell you. You got to call my guy Dan. Ready? This is his personal phone number. He said, give people my number. Have them call me directly. Dan is at 630-730-3728. Call Dan. Get set up with easy automation. Turn your home into a smart home. easy-automation.net or call Dan 630-730-3728. Is it weird that I'm wearing a blazer? I thought since you have a president in your title that I should...
President of a craft brewery. I'm wearing flannel. What are you talking about?
All right, let's begin. Welcome to Car Con Carne. I'm James Van Osdol. I am outside the brand new Salt Shed Pub, Goose Island Salt Shed Pub on Blackhawk, adjacent to the Salt Shed. And to my right, if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, that is Todd Ahsmann. He is the president of Goose Island Brewing. We are here at the soft, it's not even a soft opening, it's a preview night, really, that we're doing at Goose Island.
Yeah, this is, we have media types like you. You're a very famous media person, James. Good to be here. Good to see you. It's been a long time.
It has been. And we were just saying before we started recording, we've probably known each other for 30 years.
Yeah, which is
long crazy.
Time. Yeah, and here we are sitting in a car 30 years later.
Back in the day, I would see you at radio stations. Now I do radio out of my car.
Yeah, I mean, we're still going to be talking about the same things, beer and music.
Yeah. What else is there? That's it. We're good.
Yeah, I consider ourselves very lucky to be doing this 30 years later.
How about it? All right, so I want to talk to you about Salt Shed Pub. I want to talk to you about Goose Island. I'm not blind to the fact that we have smashburgers sitting here, and it just seems wrong to let them sit there, get cool. I mean, they literally just came out of the kitchen as we walked in here, so maybe we should start there.
Yeah, let's open it up and eat away.
So this is part of the menu. So the Salt Shed Pub on Blackhawk, right next to Salt Shed just east of Elston. Oh my, I wasn't expecting this. I was not expecting this. The pub menu includes this. This is gigantic.
Yeah, look at that.
Are you kidding me?
I am going to mess up your car here, James.
You won't be the first. You won't be the last. This is extraordinary. So, Chef Henry?
So, yeah, Chef Henry, getting ready. It's very kind that before we have everybody showing up. So, like you said up front, we're having media over to sort of get an early preview, and then we have friends and family, partners of us coming for the rest of the night. You're invited to that as well. 7 o'clock starting. But yeah, Chef Henry, he's been with us since 2018. This was a staple of the pub that he brought with him. Changed it a little bit. You already started eating. Did you?
Yeah,
you took a bite.
It's right in front of me. I mean,
but he made some changes. This was already a fan favorite at the pub, but now he's got
so it's
some pork belly fat in there. That's adding that
Merry Christmas. So it's a 4 ounce smash burger. It's a proprietary blend to Goose Island. The meat is ground basically same day before it makes it over here.
Yep, south side of Chicago.
On the south side. And yeah, he did say because of the fact that it's belly, it's a more fatty, which means more delicious burger. And this is if there's a textbook on creating smash burgers, this is the illustration on the page. This is what it should look like. And oh my God, I've only had one bite, Todd Ahsmann, president of Goose Island, and it is ridiculously good.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'll pass that along to Chef Henry.
I love a good smash burger.
Yep, and I think even better with a Honker's Ale.
Of course.
Our English bitter, the first beer we ever made at the pub when we opened in 1988, 36 years ago.
It's something I didn't realize, and it makes sense. You were there at the beginning of Goose Island as a bartender. I mean, you were a Goose Island lifer.
Correct. I took my college education and turned it into bartending. But yeah, that was 1988. That was the year I graduated college, and instead of continuing my education because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, I went to my best friend's dad's crazy new concept of a brew pub in Chicago.
And I remember those days. I was very young. I was much younger. Goose Island was an anomaly. I mean, we live in a world where there are craft breweries in every neighborhood. The notion of a craft brewery was really foreign to this area back then. I mean, it's hard to imagine in the present day, but Goose Island was an outlier.
Yeah, Chicago had such a great history of brewing, and I'll talk about it in a bit if you want. About Goose Island was actually created for beer, the actual island. But when we opened, post-Prohibition, it wasn't as vibrant as before, pre-Prohibition. So there was a time in the 70s and 80s that Chicago had no breweries.
Right.
So when Goose Island opened, it really was the beginning of this new era of beer in Chicago. And now Chicago has more craft breweries than any city in America.
Is that right? That doesn't surprise me in the least.
Yeah. You'll hear per capita, there's places in the Pacific Northwest which actually started before, we started in 1988. But yeah, Chicago now 200 strong, 200 plus strong, more than any other city.
Thinking about this location, and I got a chance to look around at the new location before we jumped in the car. It's a perfect location. I think this area that we're in right now by Salt Shed is months, maybe a year away from being completely transformed. And this is the new area. Not unlike when Goose Island started at 1800 Clybourne. That was not a well-trafficked area. When you go to North and Clybourne now, all the retail stores are there, all the activity. There's an Apple store. There's so much in that area. Back when Goose started there, Goose was a pioneer. I feel like you're kind of a pioneer in this space too.
Yeah, and I'll give you a little context on that. Can you roll the window down first?
Yeah.
What's up, Mike Siegel? Mike Siegel, head of innovation brewing at Goose Island Beer Company.
Hi, Mike Siegel. I'm James.
How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
We're in the middle of doing a what's not going to be edited podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're eating smashburgers and talking about Goose Island.
Yeah, I'll leave you guys to it.
All right,
Looks
we'll
like
see
you're
you.
having fun.
See you
Yeah,
inside.
see you in a bit. That's what, James, as soon as you told me this is not edited, you're in trouble.
He was taken away from our burger time.
Yeah.
Nice guy, but I mean, I got a smash burger in front of me.
So back to 1988 when John Haller, founder.
Wait, we're
opened
still at
Goose Island.
1988. We're going to be here a
Yeah.
while.
There wasn't a lot going on here in the Ranch Triangle. Technically, Lincoln Park, 1800 North Clybourne. There literally was a dump across the street when we opened. A steaming pile of garbage.
Mm-hmm.
By the time we opened, actually, that was gone. But people thought we were crazy for opening in that neighborhood. There was not a lot around. The closest real population was Cabrini Green.
Right. And I'm sure the thinking back then was, one, cash, cheaper to start up there. Also, opportunity. Like, being first has its rewards if you play it right.
Yeah, the price was right, and the neighborhood was ripe for expansion. We did the same thing in 95 when we opened our brewery over by the United Center. Again, nothing was over there. And now, in retrospect, everyone says John was a pioneer. Now it's the whole West Fulton Market area. But really, he'll tell you it was just cheap property. Right? We didn't plan on having people visit the brewery back then. People didn't open tap rooms at the brewery back then. We had a pub. That's where you went for the beer. But the brewery was just where we produced beer outside of the pub. So, yeah, 1988, in looking back, a pioneer for that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And now, as you asked, coming back, when we named ourselves Goose Island, there is the Goose Island, but nobody in Chicago really knew what Goose Island was. But now we're right across the river from Goose Island here. This neighborhood that we're in is officially the Goose Island neighborhood.
And they're true to form, true to advertising. There are geese everywhere right now.
There are actual geese. Yeah. You want the quick Goose Island story?
Give me the quick Goose Island story.
All right.
You're here.
So, first mayor of Chicago, William Ogden, was in the beer business. And back then, the Chicago River was very busy, right? And you could get to the Atlantic Ocean, Gulf of Mexico. That's part of why Chicago became such a vibrant city. Easy transportation. But,
I had no idea we were going to get this level of detail from you. This is amazing.
So, William Ogden, in the beer business, there was too much traffic on the brewery, or on the river, Chicago River. And the ships delivering grain would get caught up in this traffic. They needed somewhere to turn around. So he had a trench built out, so there was an offshoot in the Chicago River, created Goose Island, where boats could turn around on the river and alleviate some of the traffic. But then geese settled on the island, and it just became nicknamed Goose Island. And all these, 100 some years later, there's still geese on Goose Island and still geese hanging around our new pub.
I'm fascinated by what you're saying, but I also want to be clear that as you're talking, I'm thinking about how good this burger is. It's like the right amount of salt and sweet. The texture of the smash burger has just the right amount of crunch to it with the crusting. This is delicious. And of course, the bun, this like brioche type bun, is fabulous.
So we're making all our bread here.
Are you seriously?
Yeah, and we're using some of the grain from the beer making.
Wow. I mean, making your own bread it's a lot of work.
I know, it's very ambitious, but it's part of Chef Henry, being sustainable and local. Some really cool things you can do when you have someone making beer right next to you.
That makes perfect sense. But yeah, for the volume you guys are going to do, that's a lot.
Yeah, we'll see if we can keep up. But you're right to pick out that crunchness. That's something that has changed from the previous menu. And you heard him say it, the pork belly fat that he had added to the to the meat is what is adding that crispness, that crunch.
All right, so what else will, I don't mean to ask as you're putting a burger in your mouth, but what else will be on the menu here? For people who are listening or watching, like what can they expect when they come by, before a show or just to come by?
Yeah, so well, you can get cheese curds and pretzels, and we have the quick bites. So we've all, gone somewhere, and then it's like, got the show in 20 minutes.
Yep.
What can I get quickly?
Mm-hmm.
Smashburger, we have this amazing fried chicken sandwich. Something I'm really excited about that's new is a smoked trout sandwich. So instead of traditional tuna fish, tuna sandwich, we're using Great Lakes caught trout, and he just did such a great job with it. In concept, I was like, really? A trout sandwich? You don't really see that. But then when he actually made it and talked about how he's sourcing it and everything, I thought it was such a cool story, and it turned out delicious.
Smoked fish is delicious, period. That sounds perfect.
Yeah. So we have salads and sandwiches. It's a whimsical, non-pretentious, approachable menu. I don't want to. It's such a cliche to say, pub, elevated pub food or gastropub.
And yet, this is elevated.
I said approachable and non-pretentious. That's what I'm going to go with.
And Todd, I buried the lead. When are you open for business?
So grand opening is this Friday, May 3rd. Sort of a soft opening on Wednesday and Thursday, but we're calling it the grand opening this Friday. So as we sit here, it's Monday.
Well, I can't believe I actually have you sitting here as this is going on around you. I mean, how are you feeling? I mean, an opening's a big deal.
Yeah, sure. I've got butterflies, but the team we have is amazing. And don't forget, we have a full marketing team at Goose Island that is helping with this. We have a hospitality team. We brought over some veterans from our previous place. So I have full confidence in the team and where we're at, the Salt Shed. I also have confidence in their team. So Goose Island's been involved in music for a very long time. And the first bar to ever carry 312 was the Empty Bottle. So we've had a long-time relationship with the owner of the Empty Bottle, Bruce Finkelman.
Sure.
Who you probably also know from Longman and Eagle and Thalia Hall and many, many other places, opened the Salt Shed here. So a lot of times when you open a restaurant or a bar, awareness is a big part of it. Mm-hmm. We're going to have, 1 million people this year walking by our place going to see shows at this amazing new music venue.
Yeah, I would
Chicago.
say you're just well positioned in the community, but you're also well positioned geographically. Like, it's a no-brainer. You talked about music. You mentioned the Bottle and Salt Shed, etc. I feel like Goose Island's presence in Chicago music has somehow only increased since the AB purchase 10 years ago, which I think critics would have expected to be the opposite.
Yeah, we've always been heavily involved in music. We were doing a street party outside Goose Island Fest, outside the pub, before that was really a thing. Now, they're every weekend in Chicago.
Yes.
But back then we had Guided by Voices, Sonic Youth, Los Lobos, just every year, just such a cool lineup. Bob Mold, Soul Asylum. And it was unusual to get those kind of bands playing festivals back then. So we've always had it. I told you earlier we sponsored Pitchfork before it was even called the Pitchfork Music Fest, when it was the Intonation Festival. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if Anheuser-Busch has anything to do with it.
Well, I bring
part
it up
of it
because
is just me bringing my music world experience to it.
For sure. I think the expectation would be, okay, the macro beer bought out the micro beer, they're going to lose their identity. And I guess my point is, you didn't.
Yeah, Anheuser-Busch had no intention of buying us and then changing our identity or our culture. That they could have just created a shock top if they wanted to do that. So yeah, they bought us for our authenticity and our culture, and music was part of our culture. So it allowed us to have national distribution, which still blows my mind. Thinking not only are we national, but we're global now. So
Yeah.
I think maybe a little more awareness on Goose Island made, these bands that we've done collaborations with, like Run the Jewels and Sharon Van Etten and Mumford and Sons, more open to working with us and doing some cool things.
You are, first and foremost, a beer fan. You're the president of Goose Island. What's the cliche? You're not only a fan, you're a member, whatever it is. You're a beer enthusiast. Let's talk a little bit about the beers
Sure.
at Goose Island. Will there be rotating beers here? Or, there'll be, like Honkers will be here no matter what.
Honkers is the very first beer we ever made when we opened 1988, and it will still always be on draft here. But we have a 15-barrel system, 2 brewers, Mike and Luis, do an amazing job. Probably in the next calendar year, Mike will put out about 50 unique beers just to this space. And, his
That sounds
inspiration-
ambitious.
Nah, he can do it.
Okay.
That's no problem. 50 unique beers while still brewing Honkers Ale and some of the ones that people expect to get. But yeah, we opened making traditional English style ales. That was what our inspiration was. I think now people think of craft beer, and I always try to avoid that term. I just call it beer. As some of these crazy hazy beers and different odd beers. But for me, we were always bringing back traditional styles. We opened with an English Mile, an English Bitter, a Porter, a Stout, a Mild Ale, right? These are all beer styles that have been around for hundreds of years. So Mike and Luis are still keeping that in mind, our traditional English style ales and these traditional styles, while also not afraid to make a hazy or play into the new styles of beer that are out there. So we'll have a wide range of beers, just like we always have.
And as we're heading toward summer, we're recording this really at the beginning of May, we are officially in 312 season. And that's your classic crushable summertime beer.
Yeah, that was pretty. I'd say pretty different at the time. When we came out with 312, and that was 2005. If you remember back then, that's when everybody was trying to outbitter each other. It was when the triple IPAs that were just, how many IBUs could you get into your beer? And we came out with a very accessible, drinkable beer. Went on to win four medals at the Great American Beer Fest, but even using the term urban wheat ale, urban was a little controversial at the time. Coming from radio, that had a very, very just specific, specific connotation to it on who it appealed to or not. And 312 just for us represented all that Chicago had to represent. What a great city this was, urban aspirations. And all these years later, it's still our top seller in Chicago.
And nothing says Chicago like 312. That's one of those, especially for people who don't live in Chicago. If you know, you know. Like, if you're from St. Louis, you probably don't know that 312 is the area code that encompassed all of Chicago at one point.
Well, especially these days with cell phones and everything. But we know when we have tourists in town, they order 312.
Yeah, okay.
Which, as long as they're ordering it, I'm fine. I kind of got over correcting people. But even, our old telephone handle, our tap handle, I think younger people now are like, what is that thing? Right? They don't even know what an old tap handle looks like that looks like a phone.
So, Bourbon County Stout, that was the very first bourbon barrel aged beer, period?
Yeah, we pioneered that. Greg Hall. Beer is traditionally, before stainless steel, was served in oak barrels and fermented in things like foeders and wood, but nobody had thought of using a bourbon barrel, putting in a beer, expecting to get something different out. So 1992, first
Visionary
to do it. Yeah.
Visionary.
Yeah, it came from a Greg Hall was at a beer, bourbon, and cigar dinner, and sitting next to him was fifth-generation master distiller of Jim Beam, Booker No. So Greg, knowing about bourbon, knowing that in order for bourbon to be bourbon, it's a single-use barrel, asked him what he does with his barrels after, and he said he sends most of them off to Scotch guys who can use it over and over, but asked for some, and sure enough, Booker sent us some barrels. Greg forgot about it until they showed up, but for our 1,000th batch of beer, he just came up with this big Russian Imperial Stout. Thought, what will happen if I put it in a barrel, age it, and the rest is history.
Innovation is an important part of this business.
Oh yeah, it's part of what's so great about beer, I think, is it's always evolving. You never know everything there is to know about beer. There's new hops that are always being grown and innovated that you can work with, new aromas, new flavors. It's just, it's fun. It's a joy to make traditional styles of beer and really nail that and never forget, your history, but innovation is a lot of fun.
All right, the hardest question I'll ask you all night, I don't even know if it's hard. We see reports all the time that modern young generations, whether it's, I think we're at Z now or maybe even millennial too, the reports say that those generations are steering away from spirits and alcohol. Have you seen that? Is that an issue? Is this manufactured?
Beer's been around since before it was a commodity. I don't think people are going to stop drinking beer, wine, spirits. We see dips, 1%, 2%. I always tell my team, just don't stress out about it. The second this isn't fun, it's not beer's fault. But I think the main driver is socializing. So we are social beings. We can't help ourselves. Live music post-pandemic is thriving. Mm-hmm. And I think that just proves people like getting together with friends and in person. And part of that social occasion is drinking beer. So are people drinking less? I don't know. There's more people. So is more beer being drank? Probably. But I don't think some dry January is going to kill off beer that's been around forever, right? So I'm very optimistic about it, but I'm not worried about those reports you see that the younger generation is drinking less.
And I think you bring up a good point. I mean, I think the world forgot how to be social, and they're remembering it. Slowly but surely, they're getting back into that groove. I mean, the Earth was thrown off its axis for a couple of years, and we're all just kind of back to normal now.
Yeah, everybody's starting to get bored with the really nice couch and TV they bought and realizing it's more fun. Life is more fun when you're sharing it with other people.
So, all right, in conclusion, May 3rd is when Salt Shed Pub opens. Right behind Salt Shed, Blackhawk, east of Elston, you have a lovely riverfront patio that I think is going to be a destination for people this summer. Like, what a hangout. What a great, fuck it, I'm not going to work today. I'm going to day drink over there at Salt Shed Pub, because that's the place to drink. I mean, that screams Chicago to me.
Right on the Chicago River,
yeah.
Beautiful view of the skyline. We're still not on Goose Island, but you could throw a beer can across the river and
we
hit
don't
Goose
recommend
Island.
that, but it's in theory you can. This place is extraordinary. It's the right size. It's got the right vibe. Obviously, it's got the right beers, and as we know, it's got the right menu, because holy shit, that smashburger was great.
Thank you very much. And James, are you going to come in after this and have a beer?
Hell yeah.
You can leave your car here overnight.
Yeah, that's the plan. I got one of the parking spaces in front. Get here early. Todd Ahsmann, President, Goose Island Brewing, thank you so much for doing this. And good luck. I mean, you don't need luck, but congratulations on the opening.
Thank you, and really, really good to see you. And congratulations on your best podcast in Chicago win with the
Best
Chicago
music
Reader.
podcast. I'll
Best
qualify
music podcast. We did talk about music. That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have a certain amount of rock and roll swagger to you.
You know, I love my music. We could talk a full 2 hours about Chicago music.
Next time.